Welcome back to another update on my micro bootlegger cedar strip kayak build. This morning I'm going to work on installing these hooks. These are for the seats. This was my original design. These hooks come with tabs for kayak mounts, the ones that look like T-track, and then the tabs slide through the T-track, and then these screw in to hold them down really tight. I was going to try to take advantage of that with this design. I didn't like how big it was. It also took a lot of effort to make. It's basically a layup of 3 layers of the quarter-inch, or not quarter-inch, but quarter-inch cedar strips that are epoxied together. It took quite a bit to make that little stack, and then I still had to go to the belt sander to sand it into some type of shape. So I didn't like that. So the other morning I went out or the other evening I went out and just cut a piece of mahogany. I think this is mahogany, and again, use the belt sander to make some type of oval type shape, and then I tried to somewhat duplicate that a few more times. As you can see, they're all slightly different from each other, handmade, right? So these will go about here or so for the back, for the bottom one, and then the top one will get underslung up here on the bottom side of the lip on the top. So there's 8 of these, 4 for the back seat, 4 for the front. Here's the clips, so you can see how they clip in. I have extra washers, so some of these are loose right now. What I'll do is I'll double up the washer so that I can get a good clamp on it. My other plan is I want to remove all of these threaded inserts. These are M6 bolt pattern stainless steel. Sadly, the threaded inserts are not stainless steel, but that's okay. I won't be in salt water very often. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove these threaded inserts so I can get some epoxy into them and then put the inserts back. I'm going to make some of the thickened epoxy for the bottom, so I can glue these down with the thickened epoxy, and then I'll put, like I did with the ones for the foot pegs, I'll put a small piece of fiberglass over the top to embed it, and then we're going to see how this works, but I'm hoping I can then put the threaded insert back in through a hole in the epoxy. I have a feeling that's going to get a little messy, but we'll see how that goes. That's the hope. If the first one doesn't go well, then I'll put some epoxy in the other ones, put the threaded inserts back in them, and then do the rest of the steps. All right, let's get to it. Working through a little bit of a dilemma right now. Part of the reason why I went with these seats is so that they should be fairly easy to move forward and backwards. So when I'm paddling by myself, this front seat will be farther back, so I'm slightly behind the center point of the boat. Which, if you look in here, that puts the seat mount about right here for the front seat. Well, the problem is, if I flip you upside down, when I'm paddling with 2 people, this front seat will be right here, where the front of this foot peg is. So if I put the seat mount right here, the back of the seat will be really close to the four mounts. I mean, the straps are adjustable, so I can shorten them, but that doesn't give very much room for the strap. So what I'm debating is whether to just go with this and to be adjusting straps anytime I move the seat around. Or whether to make 4 more and mount them farther forward for when the seat's in the front position so I don't have to screw straps. The other thought I just had was, why screw your straps? Set this one up for being in the front seat all the time with the straps really short so that I can move it to where this peg is and clip it in. But then when I paddle by myself, take this seat out completely and just move the back seat forward, because the way I have it set up is for the straps to be pretty much at full length back here, which suddenly makes a lot more sense. I don't need a second seat if I'm paddling by myself. So yeah, I think I'm just going to put the 4 in the front and not make 4 more. I am going to take one of these and go ahead and trace it onto a piece of paper or cardboard or whatever scrap I can find, and start off with 4. And then in the future, if I change my mind and decide that that's not working, I can always make and install 4 more. Just have to sand out some of the clear coat and put it back. So yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so I have my pieces laid out here. Here's my 8 mounts, my threaded inserts. This is going to get really messy, so what I'm going to do is put a little epoxy in the hole, put the threaded insert in, and then put the mount out the way and let it dry just a little while I go sand the inside of the kayak where these are going to get mounted, and then start mixing up some thickened epoxy. The 4 mounts that are going underneath the combing lip will get held in place with clamps, and then the other 4 I'm just going to let gravity do the work. I might try to find something heavy to rest on them to help keep them seated, but I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that or if I'm going to bother, so we'll see how that goes when we get there. But sorry about that. Apparently I ran out of battery right as I started. I could have sworn I looked at that, but I guess I didn't. So I did the first one before running inside and grabbing more batteries. Now we'll work on the rest of them. I'm just hoping I didn't get too much epoxy on my GoPro. Tried to use the fingers that were dry when I was touching it, but you know how that goes. All right, there's our 8 little mounts. Now I'm going to go work on the inside of the kayak. I decided to go ahead and pull the top off the kayak. I was going to use clamps to hold the mounts on the underside, and then it dawned on me I wouldn't be able to put any fiberglass on them at that point. So I'm going to pull the top off. I set up some sawhorses over there to flip it over and rest them on. One thing I'd like to point out, this bottom and the hole in the deck of the kayak were way off when I first put the deck on. That's why you saw those ratchet straps, was to try to pull the hole in. If you look at it now, I have a lot of sanding to do. The deck and the hole line up a whole lot better. Back here there's still quite a bit of a gap where I didn't have it quite pulled quite as tight. But yeah, when I go to put it back together next time, it should strap in a little easier. I'll be using this tape to tape it up before I do the inseam. This stuff doesn't seem to come off real easy. I think I need to look up to see what I can use to pull this off. I don't know if I can use acetone on the epoxy or something else, or if people just end up sanding it off, which sounds like a total pain, but we'll figure that out. So I'm going to pull the deck off. I used my Sharpie as usual to mark where all the little mounts are going to go, so that they all end up in the right spot. So back to work. All right, so I'm through setting things up. I have my 8 little mounts. I have the kayak sanded all over the place. I have my pieces of fiberglass cut out. I have some little M6 bolts. The idea is I'm going to use some scissors to cut little holes in the middle of these. I'm going to try to line the holes up with the top of the threaded inserts. And then after I epoxy the fiberglass in place, I'm going to use some extra bolts and bolt them into the threaded insert loosely, just enough to try to keep the hole from just sealing shut. Alternatively, I guess I could fiberglass it in place and go around with a drill and re-drill the hole, but we're going to try this on the first one and see how it looks. And then before the epoxy fully cures, I'll remove the bolts. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. All right, so I have my thickened epoxy. I'm gonna put this on there. I'm laying it kind of like you would tile. I'm buttering the back of my mount. I'm gonna press it into place. That did not work well at all. Filled the insert. My insert just filled up with epoxy, so. All right. Alright, so I finished gluing in the last 4 on the deck over here. That one went well. That one went well. That one went well. And then my clear epoxy started to kick without me realizing it, and everything just became a sticky mess. So luckily that's on the underside of the deck, and you and I are the only ones that will know about it now. That might take some sanding. That one looks pretty good. I have some runs. I'm going to grab a brush and try to spread those out a little before they dry too much. But that's it. I'll wait about an hour and then I'll come back and I'll remove all the temporary bolts. It's been an hour and a half or so. I went around and removed the bolts. I don't know if you can see. I don't know if I didn't wait too long or not long enough. Not sure. The bolts were still just a little bit gummy when I removed them, so it kind of grabbed the edge of the fiberglass just a little. Some are worse than others. This one will need to be cleaned up to get the bolt in. Yeah. And of course, the one that went on the worst doesn't look too good either. But what I might just do is, at this point I want to wait till everything dries and cures fully. And then I think I'll hit the middle of the hole with a drill bit, clean that up just a little. But I don't know if you can see down in there, probably not, it's too dark. But it looks like, can I get a flash? Yeah. I can see what looks like clean threads on the inside of these. So the bolt did its job. It just didn't come out as cleanly as I hoped. Like I said, I might have pulled them too soon while the epoxy was still just a little too gummy, versus waiting a little bit longer and having it be just a little bit harder. But can't go back, so we'll just wait till everything fully cures and see what we need to do at that point. So I waited for the epoxy to cure. It's now late afternoon, and I hit the top of each of these with a 6mm drill bit, and then I threaded the bolts back in them. And they threaded in pretty perfect. I have another video that I'm working on talking about the handles for the front, so I'm waiting for the epoxy to cure, and then when that cures I'll throw the deck back on the hull and put the seats in and clip everything in place just to make sure I like what I see. I had to order some more of these. They haven't come in yet. Oops. So when they come in, I'll put those on for the front. And there you go. Seat mounts. And they are definitely in there.